I want to talk to you about the Sunday's new moon in Gemini. And I'm going to be honest with you, this is a video that I almost didn't make because I am deep in the final edits of my book right now. My book is coming out in November, and I'm also busy with client work. I'm running a course at the moment, and I am busy. But I kept coming back to this lunation, and I kept thinking people need to know about this one because this is not going to be a gentle moon. And if more people are aware of what's moving through the sky right now, then I genuinely believe that this will be helpful. So here we are. Welcome to my channel. I am Yolanda and I am a certified astrologer and life coach, and I've been doing this for over 20 years now. So let's get into this new moon. The first thing to understand is that this new moon has the quality of a full moon, which means even though it's a new beginning on the surface, there's a shedding quality underneath, a call to release, a call to let go, and that is unusual. The moon becomes new at 7:54 p.m. Pacific time, and then she goes void. That's very unusual. So this is a void moon. She's also out of bounds. Now, if you've been watching my videos for a while, you'll be familiar with out of bounds. When a planet is out of bounds, she's operating outside the sun's authority. She doesn't answer to the light anymore. So she's not receptive to the sun's warmth, not receptive to that Cancerian nurturance that would ordinarily soften her edges. What we have instead here is a moon that is over emotional, very reactive, a moon of heightened sensitivity, a feeling of being alone, of being misunderstood. This feeling of needing to be secretive about things, of hiding. And she's also not making any Ptolemaic aspects to the other planets. She's completely isolated in this lunation chart. Again, very unusual. So she's acting on her own this moon, and she's acting abnormally. Now, abnormal doesn't necessarily mean bad, but this whole lunation thing, this lunation chart is not gentle, not pleasant. So I want you to sit with this for a moment because there is this heightened emotional weather this week, and I'm sure you are aware of it at some level. And if you've been feeling it, it's because of this, right? It's because of what's happening in the sky right now. Now, this new moon is ruled by Mercury, who is also out of bounds, also not answering to the sun's authority. Mercury is conjunct Kronos, and Kronos is a asteroid that speaks to the things that are hidden in the upper echelons of power, truth that is being withheld from the people by those who hold authority, for example, is what's going on at the moment. But on a deeper, more personal level, Kronos is time and containment and the weight of structure, the weight of time. And there is this pull towards descent, even possibly towards disappearing. Please understand that Mercury out of bounds operates very much like a Mercury retrograde. And so we are talking here about an underworld Mercury. Okay, so there is this pull to descend, this, I don't say this to frighten anyone, but it's a very depressive moon, a very depressive sky. There may have been harsh words prior to this lunation on, the new moon is on Sunday. There may be harsh words. There may be some reality, some deep truths coming out, perhaps driven by, a desire to defend what feels like home ground. And by home ground, we're not speaking only literally about physical space, but also interior space, how safe you're feeling, if possibly not feeling very safe right now. And let us also remember that Mars is in Taurus. He's still, muscling his way through Taurus, and he's fighting to hold on to territory. And so Saturn is also squaring Mercury. So underneath all these words, whatever's being said in this lead up to this lunation, this new moon in Gemini, is likely to be causing anxiety. Now let's talk about Venus and her sextile to Sedna. Sedna is a dwarf planet, right? I have written about Sedna. If you visit my website, there's an article on Sedna, but I'm going to touch on Sedna here. I'm also going to share one of the myths, a version of the myth of Sedna, so that it will also hopefully illuminate what this lunation is. Pointing to what is going on here underneath the surface of things, right? So Venus is in Leo, and Venus in Leo is bold and playful and very creative. And there's this desire to be seen and to shine. And so many of us may already be feeling this pull towards elevating our appearance, right? Becoming more bold in our actions, in our communication, and just more courageous. And Venus is, of course, making the sextile to Sedna and Uranus. So, right, I mean, let's just quickly break down the sextile to Uranus. Venus sextile Uranus is surprising encounters, right? So you may have the surprising encounter with someone that you fall in love with, so or you find yourself attracted to an unusual type, someone that you normally wouldn't find attractive. So that may be in the cards for you. It really depends on your chart. But now I'm going to touch on this myth of Sedna. There are several versions of her myth. The one that I think is speaking to this particular aspect is this one. So Sedna was this beautiful young Inuit woman whose father decided it was time for her to marry. And he arranged for a number of suitable young men to sleep with her. And the traditional arrangement stipulated that Sedna would choose her husband from among these men that she slept with. So after she had slept with each man, her father said, okay, which one do you choose to marry? And Sedna said she didn't want to get married. The father was very displeased with this, and he felt ashamed by his daughter for not wanting to take that next traditional step of getting married. So he took his disobedient daughter out to sea in a canoe, and he threw her overboard. And Sedna, obviously desperate to live, tried to climb back into the canoe, and she was clutching onto the side of this canoe, and her father then cut off her fingers, of her hands with a hunting knife, and Sedna's severed fingers then sank into the sea. And the myth goes that her fingers then became the mammals that the Inuit feed on to this day. They became seals and walruses and whales. And Sedna took up a new life at the bottom of the sea, and she became like this mistress or the goddess of the sea mammals. She established an underwater throne as ruler of the sea and placed a vicious dog at the entrance of her abode to ward off all intruders. And her hair with time became very matted, and she became ferocious in appearance. And only the Inuit shaman can actually approach her when there's a shortage of food. Then the Inuit shaman has to go down, so to speak, to Sedna and plead for a return of, food, abundance, sustenance. And he does so by soothing her, by combing her wild matted hair in order for the creatures to return to the people, right? But an arrangement is always made when the shaman does this. When he goes down to meet Sedna, he has to make an arrangement, and it usually has usually has to say something like, "The people will not break any taboos." And what are these Inuit taboos? Well, these include disrespecting nature. Um, it also means the animal bones must be treated carefully and respectfully to ensure that the animals can then be reincarnated, and you can only take what you need. So it's this very conservative way of living, right? You have to just only take what you're going to eat, what you're going to, or what you need. And the shaman then returns to the people once these arrangements have been made. You have to look at this new moon and consider, which have you broken any taboos, family taboos in particular, because we're speaking about the sun and the sun in Gemini, the moon in Gemini, answering to Mercury in Cancer, right? In Cancer is all about the family and your lineage. It's also specifically speaks to the mother wound. And if you follow me on Substack, you'll know that I wrote a post on the mother wound. And if you're on my email list, you'll also know that I am running a course at the moment on how to identify the wounds in your birth chart, mother wound, father wound, and then how to heal this. But actually, that course is now full. But anyway, get onto my email list, and there's other options for you if you're interested in, looking at your family inheritance, your spiritual lineage. I actually offer special reading on that. But anyway, getting back to this. So, which family taboos have been broken? Or what family taboos do you think you've broken? And how has this severed you from this line, this lineage? How has this separated you from your family or from others, from your community? Uh, how are you feeling like an outsider if that is coming up for you right now? But it could also be less extreme than this. It could also be something about the way you think that has, is different from your lineage, from the way you were raised by your parents, by the culture. How has this made you an outsider? How has this caused you some grief and hardship and this feeling that you are in the underworld? Okay, so that might be coming up for you now. Okay, and then just to get back to Mars, you know me, I have to always touch on Mars because Mars is the vital force that makes you move through this world, gives you um, he's not your inner vitality. He's not, your heart power, your solar power. He's not your soul, but he is definitely what helps you express your soul. He is action. He is the principle of action, drive, motivation. So Mars, as I said earlier, is still moving through Taurus, is still muscling his way through there. He's very slow, he's very determined, he's very earthy, and he is fighting on the earth plane. So there is the sense that you are fighting for a sense of safety and support. Now, we all have Mars, as you know, in our birth chart. He is the expression of, aggression, assertion, sorry. Assertion is the positive aspect of Mars, of desire, courage. But when he goes inward, when we do not have a healthy outlet for our anger, our rage, then this inverts. When it goes inside, it becomes depression. It can even turn into illness. So remember that. But anyway, the reason I wanted to touch on Mars in Taurus is it made me think that Mars in Taurus is very similar to the image that comes to mind is of us rising uprooted like trees, right? Like rising like trees. And I think this is Rilke who said this. But what happens is instead of us rising up, like trees, grounding ourselves, making sure that our roots are healthy and deep and going deep into the soil, that we are feeling safe and secure and we're doing everything we need to do for ourselves, right? Taking that course, um, eating properly, uh, seeking support, whatever it is you need to grow these deep, healthy roots, to get grounded, to establish yourself. If you're not doing these things, what actually happens is your energy, instead of, being utilized for all these healthy, productive things, is you end up, and again, Rilke, yeah, the poet, you end up entangling yourself in knots of your own making. And I speak here from experience. I've had these moments the last 2 weeks. So this lunation's invitation, this week's invitation really, is when everything feels heavy, and I think a lot of us are feeling that way, even when the moon is dark and alone and, off in the underworld doing a thing, the invitation is to meet the vital force within you, to let it move, not to act impulsively, not to react from the wound, but to know that the life force is in you and available, and that you can actually take helpful steps towards the future you're trying to create for yourself. You can get support. You are not alone, right? So be gentle with yourself this week. Watch for, again, impulsive reactions, because this moon is going to stir emotional intensity that doesn't actually know its own source. If you're feeling low, please do reach out to someone, and don't interpret the pull to withdraw as a truth about your own worth. Okay. So, in closing, repeating myself, I'm repeating myself again. I am not going to be consistent with my videos during summer. So this is, summer here in the Northern Hemisphere. So during July and most of August, I'm not going to be consistent with these videos. I am definitely going to try to show up here, but my priority right now is the final edits on my book that is coming out in November. And I'm very excited to start sharing more about my book. It's called Rewilding, and I will start doing videos about that, probably, or sharing videos about my book in September. Until I see you again, take good care.